My 18-year-old daughter needed urgent surgery. I asked my parents to co-sign an emergency loan. They said no, because they don't want to take the risk. Then flew on a $14,000 luxury vacation with my sister and her 3 kids. I didn't yell. I did this. 2 weeks later, their lives started falling apart. It wasn't the first time I'd slept upright in a plastic chair. But it was the first time I was doing it while staring at an IV pole, pretending I could make time move faster by clenching my jaw. Layla's accident happened on a Thursday. She was in the passenger seat wearing a seatbelt. Still ended up in the ER with a fractured spine and a laundry list of bruises, scratches, and words no one wants to hear about their child. Stable, they said. Conscious. But something showed up in her scans. By Saturday morning we had a new word. Surgery. 2 options. 1, a high-end procedure with a 98% success rate. No long-term complications, minimal nerve risk. The other? The budget version. Covered by insurance, sure, but with about a 20% higher chance of permanent damage. Maybe paralysis. I didn't even let the surgeon finish listing risks before I interrupted. We'll go with the first one. He nodded. It's the better choice. But the window's tight. She's in that early stage of inflammation. It gives us the best shot. If we do it tomorrow. Tomorrow. As in less than 24 hours from now. I asked how much. He told me. My stomach dropped. But I didn't flinch. Because I already had a solution. Or so I thought. I stepped into the hallway and called my parents. I didn't expect a parade. I didn't even expect warmth. But I did expect help. My dad answered. Hey kiddo. Everything okay? Layla needs surgery, I said. There's one that gives her the best shot at full recovery, but it's not covered by insurance. It's expensive. I need your help. Pause. Then, oh honey. Are you sure it's not covered? That seems strange. Positive, I said. I've gone through it with the hospital. There's a cheaper one that is covered, but the risks are higher. Like seriously higher. My mom's voice came on the line, clearly on speaker. Have you spoken to the insurance again? Sometimes they tell you no up front, but if you push. Mom, this isn't a mistake. The better surgery is newer and not on their approved list. I need to cover it out of pocket. They didn't say anything. I'm not asking you to empty your accounts, I added. I just need help covering the difference so we can lock it in by the end of the day. They can do the procedure tomorrow. More silence. Then my dad cleared his throat. It's just, the timing's tricky, you know? My mom chimed in, soft and reasonable. You know we're leaving Monday. That resort doesn't do cancellations after the 7-day mark. The $14,000 resort trip? That one. She sighed. It's a family thing. We already promised the kids. And your sister's been so excited. Layla could end up paralyzed. Well, that's not fair, my dad said. You're putting us in an impossible position. It's not that we don't care. It kind of sounds like it is. We're not doctors. Maybe that cheaper option's perfectly fine. If the insurance pays for it, maybe that's a sign it's good enough. Dad, please don't tell me my daughter's spine is less important than a hotel booking. I'm just saying, sometimes they try to push these expensive procedures. I mean, are you absolutely sure this isn't one of those things where hospitals upsell you? I'm not buying an extended warranty, I snapped. This is her spine. My mom lowered her voice. You're very emotional right now and I get that. But maybe you should slow down before making big financial decisions. Especially with your job being what it is. I have 2 jobs. I've always paid my bills. I've helped pay your bills. That's not fair, she said, sounding hurt. You chose to do that. I chose it because I thought you'd do the same for me. Well, if we had more time to plan. There isn't time. Another silence. I see, I said. So the answer is no. We just can't, my mom said softly. We're not in a position to take that kind of financial hit right now. Got it. I hung up. I didn't cry. I sat on the bench outside the hospital and for a minute I just stared at a pigeon limping across the sidewalk. I remember wondering if it had a name. If it had parents. If its parents would have paid for surgery if they could. Then I got up, walked back inside and opened my laptop. The emergency loan form wasn't difficult. Just long. Click here if you accept the interest rate. Click here if you agree to the terms. Click here if you're out of options. I submitted it and waited. Proved. But only partially. Without a cosigner, I'd qualify for about a third of what I needed. So I did something I promised myself I wouldn't do again. I called my parents back. This time my dad answered alone. "Hello. It's me," I said. "I found a loan. But I need a cosigner to unlock the full amount. You wouldn't have to pay a cent. I'd handle everything." Another pause. They were big on pauses. Look, your mother and I talked. We're not comfortable putting our names on any financial paperwork right now. Especially with all the uncertainty these days. You mean uncertainty like your granddaughter's spinal cord? It's not that simple. Isn't it though? I've had identity theft in the past, he added. You never know with online lenders. It's a bank, I said flatly. I'm sorry, he said. I really am. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. Thanks anyway. I hung up again. This time I didn't sit down. Because something in me had shifted. I wasn't just a mom in crisis anymore. I was a woman with nothing left to lose, and a daughter to protect. You know that moment when everything clicks? When suddenly all the weird little things from your past line up like puzzle pieces, and the picture you've been avoiding finally stares back at you. Yeah. That was me in the hospital waiting room, running on vending machine coffee and fury, realizing my parents were exactly who they'd always been. I just hadn't wanted to believe it. I used to tell people I had a normal family. Not perfect. Not dramatic. Just normal. You know, middle class, emotionally constipated into budget vacations and passive aggression. We had a lot of rules growing up. Don't talk back. Don't cry in public. Don't expect praise for doing the right thing. That last one was a favorite. My dad would say, "You don't get a trophy for being decent." Which is rich, coming from a man who once called me sobbing when his steak was overcooked on Father's Day. Anyway, I was the firstborn. And the practice run. My sister Megan came along 2 years later, and from that moment on, I became the background noise to her main character energy. She got the new clothes. The upgraded toys. When I asked why she had the nice Barbie and I had the one with the missing foot, Mom said, "Well, we're better off financially now." As if 2 years was a generational leap. It only got more obvious as we got older. Megan got private dance lessons and a sweet 16 party. I got a lecture about gratitude and a gas station cupcake. But I didn't complain. I figured, okay, maybe they really are better off now. Maybe they're doing their best. Maybe this is just what growing up feels like. Being quietly sidelined while your sibling gets handed the deluxe package. Then I got pregnant at 20. And suddenly I wasn't just the background character. I was the cautionary tale. My boyfriend at the time, Layla's dad, was a mistake I corrected quickly. Verbally abusive, manipulative, broke in more ways than one. When I left, I half expected my parents to say, "We're proud of you for standing up for yourself." Instead, my mom asked if I was planning to move back in. I said no. She looked relieved. They never offered help. Never babysat. Never asked if I was sleeping. They just sort of hovered on the sidelines, acting like I'd embarrassed them in front of no one. I worked in HR by day and coached clients on weekends. Layla came with me to seminars sometimes, coloring quietly in the back. She never complained. Never asked why Grandma didn't call. I think she figured out early that the love in our family came with conditions, and she wasn't the preferred recipient. So I made it work. I never asked my parents for a dime. Not when rent went up. Not when Layla needed braces. Not even when I had the flu so bad I thought I was hallucinating my own voicemail. And then somehow the roles reversed. After they retired, they downsized into a condo with a rooftop hot tub. My dad said it was for his back. My mom said it was because the light in the guest bathroom wasn't flattering. I started helping with bills. Quietly. A few hundred here. A mortgage top-up there. I didn't keep tabs. I just figured it's what you do. It's what they would have done for me, right? Wrong. Megan never helped. Not once. But her kids. They got everything. Laptops. Ski trips. An in-ground trampoline. Who the hell needs a trampoline built into the yard? I don't know. But they got one. Then my grandmother died. Margaret. She was different. Blunt, brilliant, slightly terrifying in her ability to do compound interest in her head. She and Layla were close. They'd spend hours geeking out over investment strategies like it was Monopoly for accountants. I never got it, but I was glad Layla had that connection. Someone who saw how sharp she was. When Grandma passed, I assumed she left everything to my parents. They certainly acted like it. No mention of a will. No sit down. Just, it's handled. And suddenly they were flush. Trips to Greece. Designer handbags. Megan's kids got a car. A U1. Not even a starter car. Just a shiny SUV with a bow on it like we were in a commercial. That's when I stopped helping them financially. It felt unnecessary. But I didn't say anything. I let it go. Until Layla's accident. And the call I made from that hospital room. Until I asked them for help and they said no. And not just no. They made it sound like I was the problem. Like I was being impulsive. Like choosing the safer surgery, the one with the actual success rate, was some wild financial whim I'd cooked up between trauma naps and paperwork. I walked out of that call realizing something I should have seen years ago. They didn't help because they didn't care. Not in the way people pretend to care. Not in the way families are supposed to. They helped when it made them feel good. When they could be seen doing it. When Megan posted a thank you online with sparkly emojis. But me. I was too self-sufficient. Too quiet. Too unwilling to beg. And Layla? She was never really theirs in their eyes. Not the way Megan's kids were. Not the way they wanted their legacy to look. But you know what? Layla doesn't need their legacy. She has her own. And they're not in it. I think the worst part wasn't even the second no. It was what came after. That dead silence while my mom said, "I'm sorry, honey. I really am. But we're not comfortable tying our name to something like that." Something like that. Meaning, saving their granddaughter. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my phone. I just sat there staring straight ahead like maybe I could will money into existence. I don't remember how long I stayed frozen like that. But at some point I stopped breathing through grief, and started breathing through rage. I had done everything right. I worked. I saved. I helped them when they needed it. I asked for nothing. And when I asked for one thing, just a signature, they suddenly couldn't take a risk. But they could take 3 children to an all-inclusive resort where the towels probably had their own butlers? Fine. They wanted me to be the quiet, capable daughter? The one who doesn't make a scene? Not today. That afternoon I opened my phone, scrolled past every number that shared my DNA and started calling everyone else. It started with the mom of Layla's friend from theater club. We'd chatted once at intermission. I didn't even know if she remembered me. I called anyway. "Hi. This is Helen. Billa's mom. Yeah, sorry to call out of nowhere. She's in the hospital. There's been an accident. She's going to be okay, but we need surgery. The good one. It's expensive. I know this is insane, but would you be willing to?" I couldn't even finish the sentence before she said yes. And it wasn't just her. I called a retired teacher I hadn't seen in years. She offered to send what she could from her pension. A guy I worked with 10 years ago Venmo'd me $300 with a note that just said, "For Layla. Don't worry about it." Layla's violin teacher shared the situation in a private group chat. A woman I'd never met showed up to the hospital with snacks, toothbrushes, and a $50 bill folded into a sympathy card. People came out of the woodwork. Not family. Not the people who raised me. Just everyone else. And it wasn't cozy. It wasn't warm and fuzzy. It was humiliating. I cried in the hospital bathroom after the 5th call. Not because of the money. Because these weren't people who owed me anything. They weren't people I'd sacrificed for, covered bills for, or helped through their divorces. These were strangers, and they were doing more for Layla in one afternoon than my own parents had done in 18 years. And that humiliation? It turned into fuel. Every call was a rebellion. Every awkward ask, every embarrassed breath. It was defiance. They wanted me to disappear quietly? I wasn't going anywhere. I started keeping a spreadsheet, half to track what I'd repay, half to stop myself from unraveling. Each name was a tiny middle finger to the people who said no. Then the door opened and Layla's best friend walked in. With her mom. Her mom didn't say a word. Just handed me a credit card and said, $20,000 limit. Use what you need. I started shaking. I tried to hand it back, babbling something about interest and repayment schedules and moral boundaries. He cut me off. "You're a good mom," she said. "Let people be good to you." I didn't even know how to process that. But she wasn't wrong. The surgery got paid. Fully. On time. In cash. I signed the consent forms with a borrowed pen and a trembling hand. Layla went into surgery with the best team, the best odds, and the best chance. And still, not a word from my parents. Except, of course, when they found out people were talking. Because you see, some of the folks I called, they knew my parents. They'd seen the Facebook photos, the cruise, the matching outfits, the luxury suite upgrade. And when word got around that those same people refused to help their granddaughter get life-saving surgery, let's just say the whispers got loud. No, I didn't post anything. But someone did. I don't know who. Maybe Layla's friend. Maybe a neighbor. Maybe Karma herself. All I know is, 3 days later my mom called me 6 times in a row. No voicemail. Just endless rings. My dad texted, "Call us immediately." I didn't. Let them stew in it. Let them sweat. I had more important things to focus on, like keeping Layla alive and upright. And that's when the other call came. Not from a parent. Not from a friend. From a lawyer. A voice I hadn't heard in years. Friendly. Familiar. "Hi, Helen. It's Greg, Margaret's attorney. I heard about Layla. I'm so sorry. But, can I ask you something?" I said sure, bracing myself. "Did your daughter ever get access to her inheritance?" I blinked. "What inheritance?" There was a long pause on his end. Then, that's when I knew. Something was very, very wrong. I didn't know it yet, but that call was the crack that split everything wide open. And what I found underneath made me realize my parents hadn't just failed me. They'd betrayed my daughter in the worst way imaginable. 2 weeks after the surgery, I stood across the street from my parents' house, holding the envelope that would ruin their week, and maybe their lives. It was early evening. The sun was low enough to blind me through the windshield, but I didn't lower the visor. I liked the sting in my eyes. Kept me from thinking too hard. Or maybe it just distracted me from the low-grade nausea that had taken up permanent residence in my gut since the call with Greg. They were due back from their cruise that day, an 11-day refined coastal getaway, with butler service and sunset wine tastings. I tracked the return flight like it was a NASA launch. Layla sat beside me in the passenger seat, her legs still braced, earbuds in, scrolling something mindless. She didn't ask questions. She knew why we were there. "I don't want to talk to them," she said. "You won't have to," I replied. She nodded, then muttered, "Good," and went back to whatever she was watching. 10 minutes later their car pulled up. My mother stepped out in a flowing white resort dress, the kind of thing that screams "I vacation better than you." My dad followed, pulling a suitcase that probably cost more than our fridge. Neither of them saw us until I opened my door. My mom froze. I walked across the street with the envelope in hand, heels crunching on their perfect gravel driveway. "What's this?" she asked, already wary. I smiled, but it wasn't the kind that reached my eyes. "You've been served." She stared. My dad, who'd been fiddling with the lock on the trunk, looked up. His eyes dropped to the envelope. "You're joking," he said, but his voice cracked halfway through the sentence. I didn't say anything else. Just turned around and walked back to the car. Behind me I heard my mother shriek my name. My dad said something too. I think it was, "Wait," or, "You don't have to do this." But I did. I had to. The first phone call with Greg played in my mind like a voicemail from hell. "What do you mean Layla didn't get the inheritance?" he'd asked, like I'd just told him the son had stopped working. "I mean," I said, "my parents got everything. The house. The stocks. The antique coin collection no one liked but Grandma swore would be worth something." Greg was quiet for a beat. "Helen, that doesn't make sense. Margaret left it all to Layla." "I know. I wrote the will." I just sat there, gripping my phone like it might turn to ash. What?" I finally said. "It was all in a trust. Your parents were just trustees. It was supposed to be released to Layla when she turned 18. She turned 18 2 months ago." Greg swore under his breath. "They never notified the bank. Never filed the transfer paperwork. Nothing. So, they just kept it?" "Yes," he said. "That's not just unethical. That's theft. She's a legal adult. That money was never theirs." And that's when the picture finally came into focus. All of it. The trips. The new kitchen remodel. The way they'd suddenly stopped needing help with the mortgage. The way they'd started spoiling my sister's kids like they were royalty. They hadn't just failed to help Layla. They used her money to buy themselves a better life. And never said a word. That night I told Layla everything. I expected tears. Or rage. Or disbelief. What I got was worse, silence. She listened, arms folded, face blank. Like I'd short-circuited her ability to feel anything. They said they loved me, she finally said, her voice flat. All those Sunday dinners. The books Grandma gave me. The dumb math games she used to play. I know, I whispered. They didn't even tell me. They just took it. I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak. She looked down at her lap, picked at a loose thread on her hoodie. Can we do something? She asked. Yes, I said. We can. I called Greg the next morning. He walked us through everything. There would be paperwork, proceedings, maybe even court. Layla listened carefully, chin high. I want it back, she said. You will, Greg promised. And I want them to answer for it. He looked at me, then back at her. Are you sure? Once this starts, it doesn't stop. Layla didn't hesitate. They made choices. So will I. The next few days were a blur of paperwork, calls, signatures, and strategy sessions. Greg wasn't just a good lawyer. He was a bloodhound with a law degree and a vendetta. Apparently he'd adored my grandmother. They messed with the wrong girl, he told me once, eyes narrowed. It took everything in me not to cry in that moment. Because for the first time in weeks, someone saw Layla as more than a problem to be ignored. He saw her as someone worth fighting for. And so did I. Especially now. Because this wasn't just about the money. Or even the betrayal. This was about what almost happened, what could have happened, because my parents couldn't be bothered to tell the truth. Because they valued luxury cruises and Instagram bragging rights over a girl who once made them world's best grandpa mugs in elementary school. Well, now they'd get to meet the world's angriest mom. And this time I wasn't asking. I was coming for everything they owed. Several months after we handed them that letter, the civil trial finally began. Layla didn't blink. I've never seen her look so calm. Her hands were steady. Her jaw was set. Her eyes were sharp enough to cut through concrete. That courtroom wasn't intimidating to her. It was a finish line. Meanwhile, my parents showed up with a lawyer who looked like he got paid by the syllable. He smiled too much and used phrases like disproportionate bequest and questionable testamentary capacity. Translation. They were arguing the will was unfair, Grandma was probably confused, and Layla had no business being the sole heir. Nice try. Greg, our lawyer and Grandma's longtime friend, didn't even flinch. He had bank records, transaction logs, and the original notarized will. He even had dated copies of emails Grandma had sent him saying Layla reminded her of herself. One of them ended with, "She's the only one who listens when I talk about compound interest. That alone deserves a fortune." Their lawyer pivoted. Maybe the parents were just holding the money temporarily, he argued. She had just turned 18. Greg didn't even raise his voice. He just asked why they hadn't said anything. Why they had already drained part of the funds on cruises and car gifts and spa weekends. Why there was zero record of any attempt to transfer the money to Layla, or even inform her it existed. The judge asked for silence twice. Once because my parents were whispering furiously to each other, and once because Layla quietly laughed under her breath. Then came the verdict. They had to repay every last cent of what was rightfully Layla's. The court ruled they had breached fiduciary duty and misused the funds. They had no legal or moral standing to keep the money. Except, surprise, they didn't have it anymore. They'd spent a substantial chunk. Not most. But enough that their current assets couldn't cover it. The court seized everything. The house, the car, retirement accounts, vacation property, a so-called art collection my mom used to brag about, even the pearl necklace she once said I'd never be classy enough to inherit. They ended up in a cramped rental near a freeway. The kind of place where you don't open windows if you want to sleep through the night. Extended family cut contact. Friends ghosted. They still hadn't apologized. They've ruined the family, my mom reportedly told a neighbor who asked why they were selling their furniture on Facebook Marketplace. Layla was quiet afterward. Not celebratory, just clear. Resolved. They didn't just steal money, she said one night, staring at the wall like it had betrayed her too. They risked my life. And they still act like I should be the one to get over it. I didn't argue. He was right. A week later she told Greg to move forward with criminal charges. He nodded once. It's not an easy road. I've already been down harder ones, Layla replied. The criminal case moved faster than I expected. Maybe because the media picked it up after someone leaked part of the civil case summary. Maybe because the DA actually cared. Or maybe because justice was having a good week. Their new lawyer was cut from the same cloth, loud, expensive, and increasingly desperate. And it made me wonder where they'd found the money to pay for him. They blamed grandma, the system, the bank, the stress of retirement. They even tried the "we thought she'd waste it" argument, which earned a visible eye roll from the judge. They were found guilty. Financial theft, breach of fiduciary responsibility, deception of a legal heir. Because of their age and the nonviolent nature of the crime, the judge gave them 1 year of probation and community service. They'd be picking up trash and filing papers at city buildings instead of watching sunsets in Santorini. Photos circulated online. My mother, in an orange vest, frowning at a discarded fast food cup like it had personally offended her. My father looking lost with a broom in hand. We didn't share them, but we saw them. Then Greg called again. He asked if I was sitting down. Apparently, my parents had tried to move a chunk of remaining funds, hidden accounts they hadn't disclosed during the civil case, into an offshore platform under my aunt's name. A digital trail led right back to them. It was blatant. And stupid. That's a violation of the court order, Greg said. We're filing again. The second case wasn't as slow. Fraud. Suction. Attempt to evade repayment. They showed up in court in the same clothes they'd worn to their community service. For the first time, my mother didn't speak. My father didn't make eye contact. Their lawyer didn't smile. The judge sentenced them to 1 year in actual prison. No suspended sentence. No plea deal. No loophole. They were handcuffed in front of us and led out of the courtroom. No one stood up. No one protested. No one cried. I didn't feel joy. I felt justice. And something quieter. Something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Layla received what remained of her inheritance. It wasn't everything. But it was still a life-changing amount. She paid off her medical bills, set aside savings for college, and then, without asking me, opened an investment account. She named it the Compound Project. A quiet nod to Grandma. I asked her if she planned to spend it anytime soon. She just smiled and said, "It's not for now. It's for something good. Later." When the final paperwork came, she filed it all herself. Then added a note in the folder. Just one line, handwritten in dark ink. Some people don't deserve forgiveness. Just consequences. I didn't add a thing. I just nodded. Was it too far? Or just far enough? You tell me. Either way, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and stick around.